As Leo Brody pointed out, the media-soaked years after World War II spawned a whole generation, a whole tribe of artistic suicides, many of whom discovered how hard it was to retain their personal integrity when interest in their work played a weak second to fascination with their private lives and to whether they'd be able to repeat their past performances. In addition to Hemingway, Brody cited Sylvia Plath, Anne Sexton, Ross Lockridge Jr., some of you will remember him as the author of Raintree County, and Thomas Hagen wrote Mr. Roberts. Suicide offered all of these American writers a final act of cohesion in a world where the false and the true were hard to tell apart, Brody wrote. But Hemingway was more famous than the others and hence more subject to fragmentation of self and public image. Still, the frenzy of renown helped to spur, if the frenzy of renown helped to spur Hemingway's demise, it does not prove fatal to his literary reputation. The stories and novels, like those of Fitzgerald, have managed to outlive the curse of celebrity. Okay, well, that's what I brought to say. Thank you very much for listening. Do you want to have a question, Terry? Sure.
You mentioned that Hemingway worked hard. Did you mean as an author or
Yeah.
physically?
No, I meant as an author. He was Martha Gallagher, the third of his four wives, and the one who was probably said the nastiest things about him after their marriage, always maintained that, by God, he worked hard. You know, she admired that in him. Yeah.
Where did you
Sure.
Where did you research the archives of these men? Where are they?
Actually, Hemingway, almost all of Hemingway's papers, important papers, are at the John F. Kennedy Library in Boston. And I've been going there since it was in a warehouse in Waltham, Massachusetts. Before that's where it started out. And his widow Mary decided that the Kennedy Library is the right place. So I went even before the library was established. But that's where almost everything is. Most of Fitzgerald's papers, maybe 80% of them, are at Princeton. And I spent a semester there reading his mail, which was wonderful.
Is any part of the archive closed, difficult for you to get in?
Sure, but yeah, they're not difficult to get at, either one. You write a letter, yes.
I'm currently reading Inside Paradise. It is good. But I didn't like The Last Tycoon. That was the one that he didn't finish.
He was dying when he wrote that.
Yeah, and they finished it, but I didn't care much for that. We did also visit the Fitzgerald Zelda Museum in Montgomery.
Sure.
That's very interesting.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
That was his only permanent home, I understand?
No, not his permanent home.
Oh.
That's where she came from.
Okay. And
he came from St. Paul.
They were only there like 9 months or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but she grew up there. You know,
Yeah, okay.
That makes sense.
I forgot the story.
Yes.
What about the theory that Zelda wrote some of his short stories?
Zelda did write some of the popular stuff, and they would sign it jointly. I think the theory that she wrote his best material is poppycock. She was a good writer, but she was not a great writer. You know.
His views.
Is it true that F. Scott Fitzgerald was staying at Warner Springs here in San Diego County and writing for a while?
I don't know.
They claim that it is.
When that event? Well, he's out here from '37 till he died.
He wrote about
He came out and
in
worked in
some of his
Hollywood,
short
and
stories.
he meant very well. You know, he was doing screenplays. He was earning his living that way, but he was he'd get jobs for 6 months or 6 weeks on this film, and then he'd be off. And so he might very well have done that. Yeah.
Could you say more about his Hemingway's suicide? What led up to it, and what you know about his state of mind, or if anything to learn about it?
About Hemingway's suicide, yeah. Well, there's a chapter in the book called Hemingway and Suicide, and like many young boys, he was fascinated by it, I suppose, and by the idea of suicide. He was genetically inclined that way. His father killed himself. His sister killed herself. Grandchild killed herself. And he had depression. you know, and he also was in terrible physical shape as well. And Dave Nuffer out here has his own theories about what brought on Hemingway's death. And then, yeah.
You know, there were so many parallels between the two men, but when I think of the two men, what I know about them, their concept of the ideal man was so different. You know, Hemingway was so stoic and macho, and you know, and so forth. And then in the case of Fitzgerald, you had someone who wanted to inhabit the world of high society, and that was something he valued. You know, were these two men who could sit down and have dinner and really enjoy each other's company? On some levels, they seemed so different from each other.
Yes. Yes, well, you know, my attitude toward their friendship, it was a very close one for about 18 months, and then always it lasted. In more difficult ways after that, but it's that Fitzgerald presented his backside to Hemingway and invited being kicked, and Hemingway kicked it. And this is the way it was. Fitzgerald is worshipful toward Hemingway. Always somewhat younger than he, much less prominent as a writer when they first met than Fitzgerald was, and yet Fitzgerald conceived this intense admiration for him, as he did for a number of men. He was not good at attracting the interest of men generally. He was quite good at attracting the interest of women.
Did they?
Excellent, in fact.
Did they tend to admire each other's individual lives? Do you think? Or?
No. I think yes. I think Fitzgerald was yes an admirer of Hemingway as someone who'd been to war. He had not. He'd been in the service, but he'd never gotten overseas. He'd never seen any combat. Hemingway had only been in the war for something like 6 weeks before he was wounded, but he was wounded, and badly, and so he knew something about that. Got all kinds of questions.
What are your writing habits?
Oh, what am I writing at?
Get up at 5 a.m.? No.
No way. No, but when I'm writing, and I don't do this as much as I used to. But I used to work 7 days a week. You know, if I've got a project, and I work every day at least say 4 or 5 hours. Now I'm down to working, you know, now and then, and when I do work, I'll work maybe 3 hours straight instead of all day. You know, I used to be able to write 2,000 words a day, no problem. Now I get 500,000. It's not a bad day's work. I can go out to lunch, hit some golf balls. Yeah.